I am just going to talk a little bit about county resources that are available for families. I worked in early intervention home base for 14 years, just recently moved out of that role. So one of the hats that you do that most of you maybe know in this room is that I'm there as the educational provider for the student and the family, but I'm also their service coordinator when they're under the age of 3. And so the other hat I wear is helping families hook up to community resources and also county resources. So I'm by no means an expert. I'm not a social worker for the county, but I do have just some basic information that I'm going to give. And definitely if you have more questions, you can write them down and we can answer them. I also have a really close contact with a developmental disabilities case manager through Scott County that I've worked with for 14, 15 years. So she talked me through a few things, and she'd be more than willing to talk to anybody, even if you're not in Scott County, to help you get hooked up in the county that you're in. Because New Prague is a 3-county district, which is very unusual. I don't even know if there's another district in the state that has to deal with these issues. But us. So every county does things a little differently. A lot of my information is pretty much statewide, but every county kind of does their funding sometimes a little differently, wouldn't you believe, Renee?
Yeah.
And I'm going to look at Renee a lot too, because Renee is our social worker in early childhood and has also helped me help a lot of families as well. So I'm the one giving the presentation, but Renee helped me out quite a bit with this too. So, all right, so.
Is it not going?
No, what in the world? What do you think?
Got to put nickel in it.
Can you exit and then?
Yeah. How did we exit again? Escape? There we go. Wonder what the deal is. Maybe I'll just. Sorry, I have a lot of tabs open up top, so
It's okay.
I don't think anything's
You can just
confidential
click
on
on
there.
this.
Yeah, we'll just do this.
Okay.
I'll just do this for.
That's fine.
Yeah. So families who have a child with special needs, there are different services out there through the county, and these are just a few of them. There's DD Case Management, which is short. It's kind of an acronym for Developmental Disability Case Management. There's also Mental Health Case Management. And once you're in these two avenues, you can also qualify for something called TEFRA or waivered services, PCA respite, community support grants, parent outreach, and SSI disability. So we're going to go over a few of these today. So when you're looking at deciding if maybe your child would be eligible for some of the county services out there, step 1 would be for you to refer your child and your family for a min-choice assessment. So this has kind of changed for those of you who maybe have county services. Is you used to call your county specific, and a caseworker would come out and there would be kind of a different kind of process that you walk through. Now it's just one big system. So it's kind of nice. It's very streamlined. So the state of Minnesota decided to take on this assessment tool, and I think it's been really positive for families. So what you do is you call one of these intake numbers, depending on what county that you're in, and what happens is that there's social workers in each county designated just for the evaluation process. It's a lengthy process. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It can take up to 2 to 3 hours. For some families, because it's a very in-depth process. They ask you a lot of questions about your family and your child's needs and disabilities. The one thing that I can tell you is if you do go through this process, be as honest about your child's disability as you can. I think as parents sometimes we just take on and hover that responsibility of your child as if you love your children and this is what you've been blessed with and you do a lot for your children, and sometimes it feels really icky to tell somebody that you don't know how hard it is or how many hours it takes to help your child with something. And you want to sugarcoat it. You want to be like, oh, it's fine. It may be an hour. It takes me a day to toilet train my child. In reality, it's consuming a large part of your day. It could be 5, 6, 7 hours. Yeah, right? Exactly. And the feeding and the dressing cares or the behaviors. That's a big one. And nobody wants to admit their child's having significant behaviors that are impacting your family, because that feels icky, and it feels like as a parent you're maybe failing when you're not. So make sure you're being as honest with those social workers as possible, because that's really going to be the catalyst that gets you the help that your family needs. So that's one piece of advice I've learned along the way for families, is to make sure that you do that. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the process, Renee and I have sat in on those interviews with families, just to be that extra moral support for somebody. Maybe a family might forget, or you're sometimes it's very overwhelming because it's a lot of questions and you might start to feel a little stressed. Renee and I have sat in on those intakes. Couple hours it takes, but we're just there to support and offer up information.
The nice big change, and like if you've experienced it in the past, where maybe you had to go a financial worker for one thing, you had to go D case, you had to go to a lot of different doors to get all your needs met. So the goal in having this Min Choices assessment, it's like a one-stop. They look at the entire family's needs, the needs of the children that are involved. They're looking at the big picture. What are your medical needs? What are your community needs? What are all of your needs? So it is definitely a step in the right direction for the families that have had to go from door to door and fill out another application and another application and another application. So it has streamlined, and of course there's always going to be improvements that could still be made, but it has definitely taken that element out of it. So
Yep. All right. What happens next is, regardless of what happens, and this is where I think families get confused. If you do not have a financial caseworker, you will be signed one, and that is normally, she really wanted me to know, it's always based on the mother's last name. And to qualify for most of the programs that we're going to talk about going forward, you need to qualify for medical assistance. So this is a misnomer that a lot of people have. A lot of people feel like you only qualify for medical assistance based on your financial status of your family. And that is not true. That is one way that you can qualify for medical assistance. The other way would be your disability status. So families, so they'll, when they're in the interview process with you, they'll decide which path you're going to take. If you're in the financial category, you'll qualify that way. If you're not, you need to go through something called the SMRT process. And SMRT stands for State Medical Review Team. And what that means is that a panel of doctors read through all of the documentation that you give them about your disability, and they decide that if you're certified disabled based on the medication or medical documentation that they have. And if you are, then you are considered and receive medical assistance through your SMRT process, your disability. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then from there, if you don't qualify for medical assistance based on your financial needs and you go through the SMRT process, then you usually end up on something called TEFRA. So there's all these fancy names, and TEFRA is a parent copay program. So that's based on your income. So your copay could be higher or lower based on your family's income. Does that make sense to everybody here? Yep. It gets confusing. I feel like it gets really confusing for families.
Can you have both though?
private insurance and TEFRA, or
And
A little bit of both. Like, because Ryan had to go through the state medical review team,
right?
but we also are under TEFRA
Mm-hmm. So you go through the
because you
SMRT
have the
process.
regular insurance
Yeah.
first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
So
Yes.
SMRT is the process in order to qualify for TEFRA.
okay,
Yes.
yeah, because that all changed like in the last, it's not been very long, but it all changed.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. And
Okay,
it's hard for me to keep up with the changes sometimes.
I know.
This is where I get a little confused. So remember, what Kim says here isn't always gospel. It's kind of how I believe to understand the process and the changes. So then some people might say, what's the difference between having a financial worker and a developmental disability case manager? A financial worker is very helpful in helping families connect with certain programs such as personal care attendance, nursing services, accessing the consumer support grant. So you could go through all of this process, and you could end up then at the end of the day just qualifying for a financial worker, and you can still get some grants and some different things to help your family. I also have sometimes families who maybe end up in a crisis situation where their baby comes home with very, very intensive medical needs, and they have not had the chance to go through the whole Min Choices assessment evaluation, and they really just need nursing service in their home right away, or other things like that. So they can also just get on to the county. The hospital usually helps hook them up, and they get a financial caseworker right away, and they'll start those nursing or those personal care services right away. And then they might direct them to a DD case manager, the developmental disabilities case manager. There are ways that you need to qualify for developmental disabilities case manager. One is that you need to have an IQ of 70 or below, and you also need to have needs within adaptive needs and physical needs as well. You could also qualify, which is fairly new, this is a new division of county services that wasn't there when I first started, is a mental health caseworker. And sometimes children with autism spectrum disorders would fall in that category. And they're helping you do the same thing a developmental disabilities caseworker does. It's just they're helping you in a different light, because a lot of times children with autism don't have a cognitive delay. So there's another category there too. And then you need to have some kind of caseworker, whether it be a mental health caseworker or a developmental disabilities caseworker, help you with some of the bigger grants that come through the county, like the waiver, the family support grant, and the different voucher services. Okay, any questions? Okay. We went over this a little bit, just what you need to qualify for a developmental disability case manager. And then, sorry, it's not. And then mental health case management. This is the one that's fairly new to me, but it's a growing field, and it's a field that a lot of children are accessing and families, which is great. And we talked a little bit about that. You know, it could be any child that's suffering from any mental illness. It could be sometimes children with autism spectrum. I know we have a family that their child has fetal alcohol syndrome. They kind of fell into the mental health case management because this was a better fit for them, and they also didn't have the cognitive disability either. So
It's nice that you have all three numbers listed for the counties too on these slides.
Thank you, Renee.
So, that's very nice.
I did want to point out with the eligibility that there does have to be a diagnostic assessment. Either you just had one done, or one will be done either through your insurance or the mental health center in order to qualify for mental health case management. But they do have to have a medical diagnosis. Typical, like you said, there might be some autism ones. Severe emotional disturbance, or SED is and then others that fall under. And we do have some brochures available as well that I will post out to our SEPAC website.
That'd be great. Because we do have a relationship with Scott County Mental Health, that if we have current students in our district, that we're able to have that referral go fairly quickly, you know, in order to get those services hooked up. So if a family needs a diagnostic completed in order to start this process, we have the resources available to do that. So.
So just know your rights, that all programs that you ask to be part of at the county or that you're eligible for are completely voluntary, and you can say no at any time. And this was a really big new thing at the county that they really wanted me to share with the parents, is that all programs are person-centered and consumer-directed. So that just means that kind of gone from the county has gone away from, well, this is the program, if you don't fit in the categories, then you don't take it. It's really become more about what you need and what you desire as a parent or a family, and it's really directed by you as a family as well. So they really wanted you to know that, because I think sometimes families shy away from county services because there's a stigma attached to it, that maybe you can't do your job correctly, or you don't have the finances to help your child, or that, you know, why do you need county services? And it's really a partnership, like Amy said. The case managers come into the schools and observe the children usually once a month. The teachers are on the phone with case managers. If we feel like there's a need that maybe isn't being met, and there with the parents as well. So it really is just another support system that the school district welcomes, that we're happy to have part of that child's education, and that we can all partner together and help the child. Because sometimes there's just needs that need to be met, and we just need other funding sources sometimes too.
Yeah.
I know, because we are on most of all these, and there's a lot of paperwork involved.
There
A
is.
lot of paperwork all year long. They come in and assess every 3 months in your home and everything else. A lot of times that steers away.
It
Because
does.
Number one, they don't understand the paperwork. They don't know what it means, and just doing it. You know, if you have this child that's running around all the time and you're in a frenzy,
Yes.
and just sitting down and doing it may be more than they could handle.
Yeah.
And so I think that if I was at that point, you could probably get the case manager to come and help you.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah.
do it, you know, it help you along the way.
Yep.
But
Yep, and I think, you know, in early intervention, any of the early intervention teachers would absolutely help you with that in your home. And I even feel like our early child special education teachers in the 3 to 5 realm would help. And Renee has been very helpful in sitting down with families. And I
Our
think,
school social workers.
I would think for sure,
Yeah,
school
the
social
school
workers.
social workers, yeah.
So reach out and ask your case manager, and if they don't know, they can help you find someone. That's a good point, because that is a very big roadblock for many families, especially if you get into families who struggle with maybe their own reading and writing skills or their own organizational skills, because there is a lot that you have to keep up with that. You're very right.
Kim, to qualify for these county services, do you have to have an IEP? Is an IEP required?
No, because it's more of a state-run county program, so you just need to have a disability, and you have to have a disability that's been identified either through an evaluation the district has done, or through a medical evaluation through the county, or through a private source or a doctor.
Yeah.
So there could be somebody with a disability who doesn't want to access education, who does have these services.
Or maybe someone with a mental health condition that school's okay, but maybe home or other community things are more difficult. So, yeah.
Yep. And then I think we just had, you know, your supportive agencies, PACER and ARC. I skipped one? Oh, sorry. Oh, additional services.
That's so small.
It is really small. Okay, so these are just, you're gonna send out the PowerPoint.
Yes, I will
And
send out the
when you
PowerPoint.
click on these, I don't know if mine will do it right now, there is a link to each one of them, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So you can look up what these different things mean, but these are all the different types of programs and waivers and different things that families can access. Oh, it's so slow. Look at how slow it was. It just popped up. A lot of the children I work with, even in birth to 3, have different families. Not all of them at one time have accessed several of these different waivers and support grants, and it's just additional funding to help your family. Some of the things, like I know the family support grant, a lot of our families, like let's say you have a child that's 4 who likes to run out of the house. It maybe has, you know, a disability, a cognitive disability, such as maybe Down syndrome or autism spectrum. Or I know we have a family right now that has a child with fetal alcohol syndrome, and that is a very big safety concern. And so they've used this funding to install a fence in their yard and some safety high locks, so that their family, and door chimes and stuff. So
We had a
How
family
about
that-
electronic monitoring? Is there
Yeah.
electronic monitoring?
Yeah.
available for them
Angel,
also?
yeah, Angel Sense, it's like a GPS device. They've
Yep.
used them for that too.
Yep. So
Yeah.
you know, the families have the flexibility to use their money how they feel is fit. Sometimes some families really want just that really trained person that really knows the disability category to babysit for them, and that kind of expenditure can run you up to $20, $25, $30, $40 an hour to babysit your child, to maybe attend a different event for another child, or to go to a wedding or whatever it is, so they can use those funds for that as well. You know, you're not just going to probably get your teenage 12-year-old babysitter to help. You know, for some parents, that's a great need. Many families.
Kind of a timeout thing for parents.
It's
a respite, yeah.
so important for the family. It really is important for the student. It's important with all the family, because it gives you a break just to say, okay, I could breathe.
Yeah.
And we run with him all over. I mean, he's in Special Olympics, he's in everything. That helps me out by, his care workers will bring him to school. He brings them all over. And It takes a lot off of us.
Yeah.
It really does. It,
Yeah.
been having to work and try to figure out all these things. So,
Yep. Now this page. So these are just the different agencies and support groups that pay really attention to the closed Facebook parent group that parents have started here, which has been really great. And there's specific disability groups, you know, your advocacy groups.
We have links for a lot of the different supportive agencies and groups on our New Prague website under the special ed and under CPAC as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, there's definitely a lot of links in there. There's a lot of information about some of those different things, so.
What is ARC? What is that one exactly?
That is pretty much at one point it was Association for Our Word Citizens, but they made a PC. So it's typically the ARC of Minnesota and all that stuff. And what it is, they encourage kids with disabilities to be advocates. So they represent the ARC or PACER, where they advocate, and they have a summit in August where they're gonna meet at the Capitol and they become advocates on certain issues.
PACER and ARC are both parent advocacy groups as well, so they offer a lot of trainings for families, they offer support. If you are going into an IEP meeting and you're worried and you want somebody to be there for you, they would send a parent support person along to be part of, you know, if you have questions about your rights, if you have questions about financial needs, if you have questions about how to deal with the county. Both of those agencies, I would say PACER even more so than ARC, but both agencies have a lot of good information for families that have questions. And all you have to do is pick up the phone and call them. So.
And then there's some extra grants too that you don't even have to have this United Healthcare Foundation grant. You don't need to have any county services, and then
Oh, we just kind of added some extra things.
Yeah.
And Chris Luce is actually, she is a parent of a past student in the district, and she has come and spoke for our CPAC group in the past, and she's talked about how to use those grants and how to manage the different things. And so we do also have links on our CPAC website to a presentation that she's given in the past about different ways that you can use those grant monies and how to organize that. And she is available as well to answer questions for families. So, yeah.